We've got a couple important people on the line here today. We're going to have Bruce Hoffman chime in here pretty soon about who he is and the things he's involved in tree-wise in southwest Nebraska. And maybe first thing I want to do, Benjamin Bohall. Ben, you're here. You're a communications coordinator for the Forest Service. And would you let us know quickly, these are going to be recorded, right?
Yes, we are going to record all of these workshops, excuse me, and we're going to have them on our YouTube channel. I'll put a link in this in the chat for this this webinar, and then what I'll do is, with future reminders that we send out to folks, I'm going to include the link that will eventually become a playlist of each one of these different workshops. And aside from that, speaking of workshops, we do have several coming up, and I'm going to include a link too that I'll send to everybody. I believe we have the tree care workshops are coming up here.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and those are going to be online as well. And then of course we'll move to in-person workshops as well. And so a whole bunch of stuff coming up that's going to be on our new website. So just a few links I plan on sending everybody's way, and just wanted to say thanks to everybody for joining. I'm excited about this.
Justin?
Yes, Dean. Thanks, Ben.
Is this the Ben Bohall on public radio?
Yeah.
That is me.
A hero.
I don't. You were too kind. So this is how I really pay the bills, is working here. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
that's just a
Good.
passion project.
I'm one of your fans, so great.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dean. I appreciate it.
Ben's pretty cool.
So what's the radio show?
So I fill in for Morning Edition and All Things Considered for Nebraska Public Media. That used to be my full-time gig, and then I decided to jump to the dark side and work in forestry. So
Oh,
Thank you very much, Ben. That's awesome, man. Yep. Ben keeps us on track here. If there's any problems, please address them to Ben. Even though I set it up and I'll screw it up. So Graham Herbst, you're here on the line. Do you have anything you want to chime in right up front?
I don't think so. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm just kind of behind the scenes until next month, when I'll be going over pruning concepts with everybody, probably a little bit on tree establishment as well. If you're fairly new to Zoom, probably best to have your audio muted unless you have something you want to share. Justin, I don't know if you want to take questions along the way, or if you'd rather want to hold those until the end of the session.
Yeah, I think it might be better today to take questions. I'm going to go through quickly just tree appreciation, and then when we get Bruce on here, when Bruce gets closer to being wrapped up, we'll take more questions. So
okay. For anyone that does need CEUs for Nebraska Arborists Association, International Society of Arboriculture, or Society of American Forests, I will have a QR code that I'll share in the chat at the end, so you guys can fill out a form to get your continuing education units.
thanks, Graham. Yeah, I forgot all about CEUs, but Graham came in and rescued me today as usual. So yes, sign up for CEUs. That's awesome, Graham. And please mute your microphones if you're not asking a question. And also, don't hesitate to ask a question in chat. That might be the best way to do it. Okay, I'm going to share a screen here. Hopefully this will work for everybody. Okay, can somebody let me know if you can see the screen? Winter Tree Appreciation. All right.
Good, Justin.
All right. What we thought we'd do today, and I'm glad Bruce Hoffman is here to help me. We did this a year ago about this time with Winter Tree Appreciation, just the idea that we're stuck inside generally this time of year, but it doesn't mean we can't appreciate trees. And maybe we can appreciate trees for a little different reason in the winter, even if we can't be outside. But let's try to bundle up, get out and look at them every so often. And they really are kind of in a different light in the winter. So let's take a minute to say, yeah, trees are still cool all year round, even in January when it's cold and we're stuck inside. But most of this, I want to quickly get to what Bruce Hoffman and I are going to collaborate on, a highlight of evergreens, especially for Nebraska. So we'll get to that maybe in 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so. Does that make sense? This is our webinar series. Just be aware, yep, what Ben Bohal mentioned to you earlier. He's the one communicating with you. So when you go to the web page and sign up, you're going to get a web form with this Zoom link. That's how it's working. And these will be recorded, and you'll get a link to that for YouTube. So we're glad to have that done. Thanks a lot, Ben. And then also, as Graham mentioned, ASA and NAA CEUs.
And
Somebody has their microphone on.
yeah, you had a request. Okay. Sure.
Galen Whitrock, I think that's you maybe out there. Okay, thank you, Bruce Hoffman and Common Sense Nursery.
That was a question or not.
I'm still hearing somebody out there a little bit.
I muted Galen.
All right. Thanks, Graham. I appreciate your help on that. Bruce Hoffman owns Common Sense Nursery out in McCook, which is a fun, he calls it a mom and pop operation out there. They do a lot of good work in McCook and Southwest Nebraska. If you ever get a chance to stop in out there, it's a fantastic nursery and greenhouse operation. And then Bruce Hoffman, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on who you are, but I know you're a friend of a lot of people on this Zoom. You're a friend of all people who love trees and landscapes in Nebraska. So thank you for all you do. We should probably say also Debbie, your wife, she's the brains of the operation out there, I understand. So, and that means that it gives you time to be involved in these kinds of things. So Bruce, would you step on just a minute and say a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind?
Sure.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot right there.
No. Can you hear me here?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Debbie and I started, I don't know where you got some of these photos. Anyway, Debbie and I started Common Sense in worked on it 1990, the year of the Halloween blizzard, if you remember that. And we started as a truck farm, which our property has a little history of being a truck farm, dating back to 1884.
Oh, wow.
But it didn't take us long, and we decided to get bigger into the bedding plant and then moving trees and whatever, growing trees. So that's how it progressed. Pumpkin patch, anything to make a living.
And now you run all over Nebraska dealing with trees and landscapes. And I hope you're going to show us a little bit of that work when we get into some of your slides. So
Yes.
thank you, Bruce, for being here. This is
Okay.
awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, as I mentioned there in the first slide, winter can be drab and foreboding. Today, the sun is shining, so it's not as bad, but on a cloudy, cold, gray day, it's not very inviting to be outside. But winter can also be glorious, especially if we get some hoar frost or some snow on the ground. I just like the low winter sun angle to put trees in kind of a new light, to be honest with you. I'll throw in a few quotes of some famous people here to maybe soften the blow of winter. I wonder if the snow loves the trees and fields that it kisses them so gently, and then it covers them up snug, with a white quilt, and perhaps it says, "Go to sleep, darlings, till the summer comes again." One thing about the winter that I really appreciate, the leaves are off of our deciduous trees, and if you bother to get in the forest and take a closer look, the bark is really revealed. And so we'll just throw a few pictures of bark at you, the ones that trip my trigger: a black walnut with its deeply furrowed bark, shades of brown and gray this time of year, coarse branching habit. The hackberry I've always loved for its winter bark interest. And then that persimmon on the right reminds me of an alligator's back. And then we don't always think about it, but trees have a really diverse way of protecting their inner functional organs, their cambial tissues that keep them alive. So they have to put a layer of skin on, just like we humans do. They call that bark. And with these smooth bark trees, they are sloughing that bark off almost like humans. We lose over 1 billion skin cells a day. And so these smooth bark trees are probably doing that too. But these rough bark trees take longer to shed their skin, and we'll show a close-up of a hackberry about how that really works. And then there's peeling and papery bark of different things, like the river birch on the left, pecan lilac, and then paper bark maple on the right. You can also take time and look closer to twigs and branches and leaf scars and things like that. And here are a few that catch my eye in the winter. A sweet gum has winged branches, so does the rock elm, and then that bur oak. Sometimes you'll run into a bur oak with deeply corky and winged twigs, and they think that's a response to fire adaptation for our bur oaks. Isn't that neat to see that revealed in the winter? Other trees have interesting twigs and buds. That American beech on the upper left, wow, it looks like you could stab somebody with that pointed bud. The ginkgo on the lower left builds itself a little bigger year after year. It gets longer and longer. The black walnut, I see a monkey face in that leaf scar. That fuzzy leaf scar is very distinctive. It looks to me like a monkey looking at me. Up on the upper right is the duck-billed look of the tulip tree, or maybe a platypus bill at the terminal bud on a tulip tree. And then blue ash on the lower right isn't a tree we have a lot of in Nebraska, but it's got four-angled stems that are really prominent in the winter. What good is the warmth of summer without the cold of winter to give it sweetness? That's John Steinbeck. Sometimes fruits and seeds are pretty prominent in the winter, hanging off of our trees. A coffee tree, a linden, tulip tree, sycamore and plane tree, sweet gum balls, box elders hold on to their leaves in the winter. And then on the far right is the catalpa, the cigar tree. That's really distinctive with the way those long seed pods open up and crack open in the winter. And then there's conifer fruits to think about. And we'll get into this in a little more detail when we get Bruce on here in a few minutes. But we generally don't think of evergreen fruit in the winter. Sometimes they're on the ground underneath the tree, but that's a good way to help ID trees. No winter lasts forever, and no spring skips its turn, thankfully. We'll get through winter. We're going to look at just a few species to think about, and for me, some of these that really make, it's good to get through winter with these kinds of trees hanging around. How about a bur oak loaded in snow on a cold winter day? This is a line of them here on UNL East Campus, not far from us. The bur oak, I love the way that deeply furrowed, hard and heavy, dark gray bark just shines in the winter, and then it has this really naturalistic, picturesque branching form. Hounds of the Baskervilles almost. They're often wider than they are tall, but that's a tree that says, I don't mind Nebraska's winter, bring it on. The winter tree is a snowflake dressed with grace and bones, a simple miracle to behold on a winter's lovely road. Angie Weiland Crosby. These are some pictures of a bur oak I took in Waverly back when we used to get snow a few years ago. Here's that hackberry bark. I love the look of a hackberry. And if you get up close and look at the side of those hackberry scales, you can see that they get a little more layering to them every year until that whole scale might pop off, that warty bark extrusion. So you can see it almost looks like you're looking in the edge of a canyon as those ridges build up year after year. And then on hackberry, oftentimes we see these witches' brooms, distinctive winter ID characteristics for some of our hackberries, and seeds hanging off. Sycamore, who can't enjoy a sycamore in the winter with that ghostly white or creamy gray and mottled blocky bark? They really stand out, kind of a ghostly appearance in the winter. I love the way a sycamore looks in the winter. And look up at the twigs to find the leaf scales and scars, and you're going to see the buds look like almost an ice cream cone hanging off the tip of that twig. How about cottonwood? In our part of the world, we better appreciate cottonwood. I'm always amazed at cottonwood's ability. You talk about a tree that has deeply furrowed bark, so it's holding on to that skin of its bark for a lot of years. And I always joke that you could lose a cat or a small child in some of the crevices of this cottonwood. This one in the middle is a big tree we just measured in the Champion Tree Program down near Cortland just a couple weeks ago. 28 feet circumference at the base of that tree. It's not even close to being our state champion or national champion. Walnut, as I mentioned to you earlier, I love the bark of walnut. I love that fuzzy bud looking at me that looks like a monkey face. I love walnut in the winter. How about Kentucky coffee tree? That picture on the right was taken late in the day when the sun was being filtered through some reddish colored haze. And it shines so nicely on that, what I just call a flaky bark of the Kentucky coffee tree. Black cherry, when it's young, it's got these prominent, shiny red bark with lenticels on it. And then as it matures, it gets a peely and kind of a flaky bark that reminds me of maybe cornflakes stuccoed onto the side of that tree. That's our native black cherry, a tree we don't plant enough of. The color of springtime is in the flowers. The color of winter is in the imagination. Bruce, you might be able to chime in here again. Bruce Hoffman, we're going to get him on here now, just switching gears here a little bit. Bruce, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a picture of myself and Bruce Hoffman with Greg Morganson and Tim Buchanan. Tell us a little bit about this group of people you hang out with, Bruce.
Well, I think most of us in Nebraska here are familiar with, I hope, Greg and Tim. Tim's the retired forester from Fort Collins, Colorado. So if you've ever gone into Fort Collins and you have admired the trees, that's the guy that's responsible. Greg Morganson, first class plant breeder. It's when I hang with these guys, it's
Yeah, I'll try some.
it's like trying to drink from a fire
Yeah,
hydrant,
just a couple.
proverbial. But anyway, the picture on the left there, it's my left, is in Picture Canyon in northeast Colorado. No, excuse me, southeast Colorado, northeast Oklahoma, New Mexico. Gosh, I'll get it. Northwest Oklahoma. We were down Black Mesa, and this is a Tim on the right there collecting acorns from a gamble oak that he is going to propagate.
Yeah, and so Bruce, you've got an eye out on all these interesting trees. I think you've got an eye on Kansas and southeast Colorado, that area, for trees that might work better for hot, dry Nebraska. Is that right?
Well, yes, and so my interest is to the southwest. It seems like we're having to do with less water. So I'd like to see us bring some of these plants up. They may not work in eastern Nebraska, but for western Nebraska, there's some things that down there that I think we should be planting.
Right on. Yeah, look at those gamble oaks there. They're very lovely trees growing on dust and a few spits of water every year.
Yeah.
Okay, with Bruce today, we were going to focus on conifers, gymnosperms, or evergreens. Those are all mostly the same thing, although not exactly the same thing, because there are some deciduous conifers, but we're going to mostly focus on evergreen conifers. And Bruce, you asked me to throw up this slide from Howard Eyre.
Yes.
Good way to describe the different types of evergreens.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of explanatory here. I don't know. I mean, I could read it here. I think we're all familiar with the pines and spruces, firs, maybe not so much here. It could be more, absolutely not redwood, but and they get their name conifer from conifer. So I mean, cones,
Right.
cone bearing. And then the other ones that we're more familiar with here would be junipers, Rocky Mountain juniper, eastern red cedar, arborvitae. We don't see, although there's some introductions from North Dakota that we should be trying, but arborvitae, every year I see people go to the big box store and they have 40 of them planted in a line out there, and they're all little brown guys by springtime.
Right.
I think they would benefit from more humidity, coastal kind of humidity, and they don't seem to do too well here. So anyway, that's kind of okay. and this started, the reason Justin asked me to do this, I think I did a presentation once like this. It was mostly sensory though. We were looking at cones, touching. Anyway, it snowed that day of the event and no one showed up. And so Justin felt sorry for me and said, hey, you want to present a little bit here. But there's two groups, hard pine, soft pine. I think most of that looks familiar. You don't need me to read it necessarily. There's some things here that I realized I'm not confused on, but I've always used every group of branches as a whorl. And
Right.
I see where, that terminology may be only practical for soft pines. I don't know. So I was a little bit confused about that. As far as hard facts, hard things, what am I trying to say here? Absolutes. I read yesterday where a good way to remember the number of needles in a fascicle, white pine, WHITE, 5 letters, 5 fascicles. Well, that's not true. Pinyon pine, something that we should be trying, that I see with my customers down in Kansas that do quite well. Might be a cultivar thing again there, but they can have as few as 1 needle to fascicle. So, I mean, these aren't absolutes. And so there's over estimated up to 187 different species of pine.
All right. Wow.
So some of this pertains to where we are, and it may not pertain to the east or west coast. So,
And we're going to hone in today on things that, Bruce, you see worth trying in central and southern Nebraska. And here in Nebraska, I think our hard pines are generally things like ponderosa pine, Austrian pine, maybe Scotch pine. And then the soft pines or the white pines. Our native limber pine is one of those. And you also mentioned the pinyon pine, which was a surprise to me. I didn't realize that was a white pine. Here in eastern Nebraska, we can also grow the white pine from the eastern US, but it's not the best choice here. So
and also Mugo is a hard pine, and Jack, which, we need a little interactive someday on that. Jack pine, which I see a few in the Sand Hills, used to see a bunch
yeah,
north of Thedford.
they're a tough tree.
They're not very well. They may be tough, but I mean, I wonder if that's a cultivar, or if there could be cultivars or whatever, or provenance. They can get pretty yellow looking in the winter.
Right.
They're not easy on the eye. Anyway, okay. Cone formation. So part of my deal was a learning experience. Pine cones and how they're formed. And you see on the hard pines, typically it takes 2 years. The cone is formed on the stem. It slightly opens up to accept the pollen from the female cone, or the male cone, pardon me, and then closes back up. And then a hard pine, typically that takes 2 years to develop, and then opens up and disperses in the wind. This is a pretty good graphic of what you'd be looking at on a branch. This is ponderosa pine, what you're likely to see. You can look at the pollen there. The female, the male cones, I keep getting that mixed up. The male cones are typically higher on the tree, so the wind can disperse them a little better, and they aren't pollinating their own fruit, if that makes sense. So
All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it says here that for most hard pines, the seeds are winged and they get caught in the wind, but we're aware of some soft pines like the pinyon pine or the limber pine that are seeds that are attracted by wildlife, right? Or spread by wildlife.
correct.
Okay, we'll do a little bit of mixing here of just inspiration and trees to appreciate. We'll start here with ponderosa pine. That's the widest spread pine in Western North America. It grows, there's different subspecies, but it's the most prominent native pine in Nebraska, throughout Western South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado even, and clear out to the West Coast. So we have a 106-foot tall tree. Our state champion is out in Gilbert Baker Wildlife Management Area, north of Harrison. That's a neat place to see. And then this picture with Brad Kindler in it is on the Trestle Bridge right outside of Valentine. And in that picture, we've got ponderosa pines mixing with bur oaks and other trees from more of an eastern U.S. Species mix. So right there along our Niobrara River is where western Rocky Mountain species mix with eastern species. Here's a couple pictures of ponderosa pine, upper left out in Kimball, and on the lower right is in Waverly, the two hometowns that I've existed in. The ponderosa pines make those places so much better. This is one out in Kimball on the left, where the one thing I love about ponderosa pine, Bruce, is as they get big, they shed their lower limbs and they become magnificent shade trees over time.
Yep, I agree. In fact, I think there are better selections for windbreaks, if you're trying to stop the windscreen. But well, I mean, they have a unique look when they're laden with snow like that, a blanket of snow on them. So
I remember you told me one time in your area that our ponderosa pine can get a little yellow.
yes, they can become a little chlorotic looking in the wintertime here. I guess that's a little winter burn. I guess that's what that'd be.
And so we often compare ponderosa pine with Austrian pine. Do you have a quick comment about that?
Well, Austrians I know have lost favor in the eastern part of the state completely. And we do have some, I do spray for Dothostroma. I don't see that much Diplodia out here, but I would, Austrian, the easiest way, well, the bark is a good way on ponderosa, the pan of brownies looking thing. I probably heard that 30 years ago, and it stuck with me. But the Austrian has 2 per fascicle, and the ponderosa will have 3. So
right. Yep, silver gray bark on the Austrian and brownish red. I like that idea of a plate of brownies. You're getting me hungry here. And I always point out on the cones, they're similar in size, but the ponderosa pine cone has these sharp prickles on the cone scales. Here's some pictures you took. So these are 2 Eurasian species, but they do well for you down in the McCook area. Austrian pine on the right in that Indianola cemetery, and then you mentioned Bosnian pine on the left.
And yeah, Bosnian pine is something that, you'd have to be kind of forgiving. Seeing the perfect pyramidal shape for me. Now, there again, you never know about seed source, provenance, whatever. They are kind of fat and round like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're unique, a little different, shorter, heavier needle. So,
yeah. I've heard that they're kind of a cousin of the Austrian pine, so that's why I threw them in here together.
okay. And Austrian, like I say, I know that they have lost favor. We don't have that much on our palette to just dispose of trees.
Right.
Okay. We have pretty good airflow out here. We're not as humid as the eastern part of the state. So like I say, I do see some Dothostroma, typically if they're crowded in a bunch of other trees,
Okay.
pretty tight. That's when I see it. So whatever.
So you might suggest that we don't plant our evergreens too super tight together.
Well, it'd be nice if we had enough room to, do multiple rows and mix up the species.
You're going to show several pictures from the Indianola Cemetery here. That must be a great place to go see evergreens.
Well,
we're moving on to pinyon pine. You told me you're seeing good luck with that out your way or down in Kansas. And then I threw in a couple pictures here. The Big Springs Park is this tree in the middle. That tree gets no care. And then on the right is a tree Greg Morganson took a picture of when he was out in North Platte. Look at that wonderful old pinyon pine. And this is
There-
what you were mentioning. Pinyon pine is actually in the white pine group. Most of these trees have 5 needles, but the pinyon pine has 2, or at least our Colorado pinyon. You took this picture of the cones being set here on the right. Bruce, do you know, are those cones just opening up for pollination?
Well, see, I'm not clear on that. And I tried to search for some images that absolutely define that. I wasn't able to find them.
We can surely see the male cone versus the female cone there, right?
I thought, yes, and that's the early morning sunlight. I mean, I take a lot of photos, but
Yeah,
it
that's
it
awesome.
has everything in it there.
And we can eat these cones. Well, not the whole cone, but the seeds within them.
The nut, yes. Pinyon.
Pinyon pine, right? That's a Southwest U.S. native primarily, but it grows up into even northern Colorado, and it's proven itself like those trees on the left are at the Kimball Fairgrounds where I'm from. So they're pretty nice trees.
Yeah.
Slow growers, but easy to grow and tough. Here's Swiss stone pine, and you threw a picture of that in, Bruce. So these are some trees at the Sydney NRD. Galen Whitrock is on. These are trees that he planted, would know the cultivars. But what do you want to say there, Bruce?
Well, that Swiss stone Sembra, I'm sorry I didn't have a better image, but it shows the needles pretty well. They're soft. It has performed. We don't see it a lot, but it has performed very well out here. A real soft blue color, very has the pyramidal shape like you see there on the right. Is that a Galen's plate property?
Yeah, that's at the NRD offices in Sydney.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, but
Isn't that a fantastic tree? Drought tolerant and easy to grow. Yep.
I do see a little bit of occasionally we'll see a little bit of burn on the southwest corner of the, like you see in that one photo there, but nothing that would make you not want to have the tree.
Okay.
Yeah, you can answer that to Erica. It is the same pine nuts that are used in cooking. I mean, pinyon pine. Did you see that question, Justin?
I didn't see it. Yeah, Bruce, very good. Right. Same species that gives us the edible nuts. That's right on. And normally they come out, if I understand it right. Well, wait, we're talking 2 different things here. So yeah, the pinyon pine from the Southwest US has an edible nut, right? And it's my understanding that it's a really important crop thing for some Southwest US tribes, New Mexico and Arizona.
Yeah.
And then the Swiss stone pine is also a tree with an edible seed, a pine tree with an edible seed. It's called a stone fruit, I guess. But I'm not sure, do we see those in our groceries here? Is that what our pine nuts are here in the US? I don't
Good
know.
question. I can look into it a little bit while you guys keep rolling.
I don't know. Todd Fowler mentioned here, you probably didn't see, I know you're trying to run the show here, Justin. He mentioned that they're great when they're covered in chocolate. So
All right, right on, Todd.
free pinyon, chocolate covered pinions at Fowler Landscape next week.
That's right.
Yeah, and let's put a plug in for Todd right now. He'll be on later in the year. He's going to really delve into a wide variety of evergreens right when we get closer to the fall and Christmas time. Bruce, you thought I should throw in some pictures of Scotch pine. I've kind of given up on it myself because we're losing so many to pine wilt disease, but there's still quite a few nice trees out there, aren't there?
It's a shame we've lost them, and we stopped dealing with them probably 20 years ago, but aren't they pretty in their fall color?
Yeah.
When I drive through Omaha, eastern Nebraska, or I-80, see all those red trees.
Yeah, I love that bark.
Oh, it's incredible. What a shame. I mean, they were a very nice tree. It's a shame we've lost, that we're in the process of losing them. So
yeah, so easy to grow, tough and reliable.
yes.
So everybody should know pine wilt kills Scotch pine. Pine wilt is actually a native disease on an introduced tree. So that's part of the problem. Some of these trees are escaping the death, and maybe I think we'll have some Scotch pines around forever, but the only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. That was part of the Robert Frost poem, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening. We're going to move from pines into some other types of evergreens. Here's some snow-laden spruce trees. Here's just an idea of the major spruces we grow in Nebraska, and you can tell their differences primarily by the cone size. Black Hill spruce on the left, which is a type of white spruce. Then there's Colorado spruce, which has about a 3 to 4 inch fat cone. And then the Norway spruce we have more of here in the Lincoln and eastern Nebraska area has a bigger cone. And Bruce, you took this picture of a Colorado spruce in your nursery here on the right.
Yes. Don't they, they look like you could eat them.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. You said they are so delicious, you'd be tempted to munch on those soft, new
Yes.
candles.
I probably need to speed up here a little bit on my part, but so I see you got, this is the Black Hills white spruce on the left photo, and on the right, the issue I was getting at, these trees get no water, none, and this was an NSA grant, the city of McCook, around the ball field. They get, like I said, get no water. You can look at the Black Hill spruce on the left there, fairly thin, I would think, from so much pressure. But that one on the right, and there might be another one coming up, but that one on the right, concolor fir, I mean, it's abused, and look at it hanging in there and how dense it is still. So it really, but they're hard to come by in the trade. The mortality is high on them when they're small. They are a slow grower. A lot of nurseries look at them as a dog. So, I mean, they can be tough to find.
We've got some more concolor fir images coming up. These are more Colorado spruce. And we've been talking here in the Forest Service for a few years about how Colorado spruce is starting to show so many disease problems. And it's been such a mainstay for Western Nebraska. What are your quick thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, they have problems, but I see a lot of nice spruce. They're a big part of our selection out here, and they play an important part. I hate diagnosing spruce problems because there can be several things going on with them, but
right, it's hard to pin down, and part of it's just our shifting climate, higher humidity, and it could even go back to the way they were produced, right, and planted. So
yes,
I love that picture on the left, those Colorado spruce mixed with other pines in the Indianola Cemetery. I want to go see that place. Well, here, Bruce, is a good example of the value of spruces in the landscape. I love these pictures you took, how they're combined with other things.
And that's I mean, think about conifers. We're talking about specific conifers, but the role they play, they block the wind. Life could be pretty tough west of the 100th meridian if we didn't have our trees to block the wind a little bit, but they provide protection for livestock, wildlife, but just the aesthetics of the beauty. And I just threw those in because just to show what you can do with the blue spruce, throwing it in with some other things.
And look at that. It's an absolutely beautiful picture. I don't know what's all red. Maybe a crab apple on the left. I see a
viburnum.
Oh, a viburnum. Love it.
Tree form. Yeah.
And then in the background, you've got a white ash.
Yes. Autumn
You've
purple.
got a Burr Oak, I think, near the front here.
Yeah, you're right.
I love it. And then those understory shrubs and grasses. You act like you know what you're doing out there, Bruce.
No, thank you.
That picture on the right really glows.
Sugar maple. That happens to be, and I know we're talking about deciduous conifers, but that's a fall fiesta, which we like fall fiesta. They perform very well, but the ones that, and I didn't include any pictures because I was dealing with conifers. the John Pear, the Caddo sugar maples, and specifically John Pear for us. Hope it's okay to say that. I mean, it really
Yes.
performs well, and it's pretty tough growing conditions here in Southwest Nebraska. It really does well. So.
Yeah, Bruce, I'm glad you mentioned the Caddo variety of sugar maples. They're underused for us for sure. Here's your concolor fir, the picture on the upper right you took with those beautiful blue cones. Was that in the summer maybe?
Well, yeah, well, obviously the trees behind them are leafed out, but and that was a particular cultivar called candy canes. It was kind of a not a typical looking tree, but the cones were out of sight. I mean, they were incredible. So
Yeah, and I think concolor fir, it's important to point out that the cones on concolor fir shatter and come apart on the tree. You don't find them on the ground, unlike a spruce or a Douglas fir, but boy, are they beautiful.
and concolor fir, the scent. I was talking to somebody today when I'm walking nature, whatever, I'm constantly stripping things and crushing them and smelling them. So if you ever get a chance to take a couple needles off of a concolor fir, if you have not, crush them a little bit and you will probably be referring back to that finger the rest of the day.
I
They have
love
a wonderful citrus smell. The one on the left it was to illustrate again that if we had enough humid weather out here and that water tank might condensate and drip, that would be the only water that tree would
Yeah,
have a chance of getting. That
look
tree,
at it.
it gets nothing, and it grows in spite of us.
That's amazing. I love it. What a beautiful tree. I love the way you've juxtaposed both of these trees with taller and architectural elements.
Yeah, outside the Capitol building, there's quite a few concolor fir around there, and of course the Taylor junipers too. But
Then there's a tree, it's not a true fir. We call it the Douglas fir. Again, you found these in the Indianola Cemetery.
mostly that cemetery has a lot of junipers, cedars in it, and we had a horrible bagworm infestation, a few years ago. The bitter cold for about 30 days there seemed to really tamp it down. They're kind of coming back, but so I'm in there and just at a glance looked over at those trees and thought, oh look, those spruce have bagworms on them too.
Yeah,
It was the cones look quite a bit like a bagworm
right.
from a passing glance, and then I realized what the deal was, and I think this might go back to as old as they are, as old as this cemetery is. Perhaps it was a mix-up, like Greg Morganson talks about in one of his
Right.
talks, the Wheatland Cemetery there in North Dakota. I think it's Wheatland, and that it was a mistake actually when they used to dig them in the mountains and ship them, and it was done mistakenly. So
I see so many nice old Douglas fir in Nebraska cemeteries. I wonder if there was purposeful effort at that, 80 years ago or so, but and then you threw in the idea of let's show red cedar in a positive light. I love the bark of red cedar in the winter too. It can be quite outstanding.
there's nothing better at stopping the wind. Nothing.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, we're going to complain about red cedar here in a minute, but they really are valuable trees, and they've been around here working for us since our pioneer days. These are Taylor junipers for you, right? They're a variety of eastern red cedar.
yes. Really add a lot of interest to a landscape. I mean, if you're shorter spaced in with power lines, but still want some kind of privacy, and like I say, arborvitae typically aren't much of an option in our area.
Okay.
Uh,
You can't beat a Taylor juniper. Do you have good luck with the upright Rocky Mountain junipers?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Rocky Mountain junipers, though, here you need to know in a windbreak situation, they were, I think, eastern red cedar because of the destruction, the opportunistic side of them in our grassland. about 30 years ago, it seems like, as I look at these windbreaks, a big shift towards Rocky Mountain juniper, maybe not as many seeds, not as hard on our grasslands. But if you think about where they grow, high elevation, low humidity, plenty of air movement, then we bring them and put them in a disease incubator,
Right.
a windbreak. I spray a lot of trees as far west as Grant, Nebraska, which is almost to Colorado, for crying out loud,
Right.
that are bothered by Cercospora. And we
Cercospora.
spoke yesterday, Justin. Those are junipers there, and that's kind of the one in the middle in the top there. If you that's what Cercospora. You kind of see that lime green on the inside there a little bit. Fairly easy to control, but is pretty hard on windbreaks, and it can get on red cedar. It can affect red cedar as well. So
Dang, yeah. And then we've got red cedar as a runaway problem, just invading our grasslands. I like your bumper sticker here. Take me to your cedar, support prescribed burning. So even though cedar is a valuable tree in a lot of ways, we got to manage it in our grasslands and our woodlands. So, and then here on the right, I love this video you took, Bruce, of the bagworm. Was this on a red cedar?
yes. Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's a pretty cool strategy, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
Most homeowners think, oh, it's part of the tree. Hey, my tree's got cones this year.
And it's hard to see these guys with such clarity. I never see them like that. I just see the bags. Good work on that.
Oh, thank you.
Here's another good video you took with cedar orientation. What's going on here?
Well, I thought the Medicine Valley was on fire one morning from Highway 83 when you're approaching Maywood. You can see the Medicine Creek, the Medicine Valley. And I thought, good Lord, somebody is really grinding hay or there's a fire. And then I realized I still was seeing all this and realized stopped. And what amazes me is what makes them all decide, hey, today's the day we're going to display
Yeah.
our pollen. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oops, I better go ahead. Slide. Oops, there we
Hey,
go.
Justin,
Yes, sir.
this would probably be a good point. While you were talking, I remembered a video that I took a while back that's very short, and it might be appropriate right here while we're doing the pollen release video that Bruce just shared. Would it be okay if I took the screen share for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You the man.
Yeah. So at Douglas County Extension, where my office is, this was March of 2018, mid-March. I came out of the back door heading to my vehicle, and I heard a sound that you'll hear as well. And it sounded to me like rain, which wasn't going on, or a lot of insects, a lot of clicking. And what you're going to hear here is actually the cones of Austrian pine releasing their seeds, and it was really neat. So you shouldn't need to turn your volume up to hear this, and I'm just going to play this quick 17-second video clip.
Cool.
Were you able to hear that?
I didn't hear it very well.
No,
No.
it's just a little clicking sound.
I heard a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how well it was going to translate to video, and my camera at the time on the phone wasn't good enough to see the winged seeds falling to the ground.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
yeah, I just thought I'd share that real quick.
Thanks, Graham.
You bet.
Can you
Yes.
see the rest of this screen being shared here?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, we're back to bald cypress, a relative. It's in the pine family, but a relative of our cedars. So we just thought we'd throw it in here for those of us who can grow bald cypress. We're amazed at how adaptable it is, even to drier parts of Nebraska. Sometimes some of the best bald cypress are at Cody Park in North Platte, of all places. So,
Absolutely.
but man, is that bark attractive in the winter, isn't it, Bruce?
Yes, they're gorgeous.
And then we'll wrap up here, Bruce. We thought we'd show a couple, you just thought you'd talk about a couple problems we're seeing out there. Whoops, I've got to go back. You mentioned that both lawn care things and then herbicide damage.
Well, yes, this is, it is a big issue out here, I think, everywhere. You see products that people think are just glyphosate. And on the label, they're encouraging you to use your patio bricks and stuff. Well, that's where your tree roots are. But some of that glyphosate has triclopyr in it.
Right.
And anything that says season long, stay away from. But here's a pretty good example on the left picture. I just thought it illustrated it so well, how we are so well-meaning, but the harm we're causing. Look at the lawn on the left. I think you see some clover. I'm pretty sure there's dandelions. There's probably dockweed in there, whatever. Look at the calorie pear. I know they're a dirtbag tree. I get that. That's not my point. Look, they can be chlorotic here. In our soils. Look how dark green and healthy it is. And these people are doing nothing. Okay, go next door to the wonderful people that look how much pride and care they take in their home and everything. That's a maple and an oak. They look like school buses, but there's not a weed in the lawn, and it looks like just an overgrown putting green.
Right.
So this is not to, knock them, but we are injuring our own plants, the ones that are important, the woodies. So that's and I think the one on the right, I could be wrong. That's a tree of ours that is kind of out in the open, subject to some pretty strong easterly winds in the spring when the neighbors are doing their burn down. To me, I think some of that is resulting of phenolic growth regulators affecting that tree. I could be wrong. It could be just because it lost its apical dominance. I don't know. But when you see them coming out of the side there,
something's going on.
It's a little bit different. But anyway.
Yeah, Bruce, you've been at ground zero dealing with herbicide injury on trees for a lot of years. So I think we'd all trust your opinion on what you're seeing the results of. So
anyway, that's it.
You think winter will never end, and then when you don't expect it, when you have almost forgotten it, warmth comes and a different light. Wendell Berry. As we wrap up here, Bruce, say a few words about Burr Oak Canyon down there southwest of you. Is that in Hitchcock County near the Kansas border?
Yes, south of Culbertson. There's probably quite a few people on here today that were at this. This is a photo from the first year I see Graham walking down the hill there.
Yep.
The first Burr Oak Canyon symposium that we had. And Tim Buchanan, who I think is possibly listening, maybe going to be on one of these later. He was a major presenter. We've had Greg Morganson since at different ones. But it's a unique spot. Burr Oaks that were inventoried. And yes, they're down off the rim of a canyon. And Greg gave the presentation on how they have persisted. They would have been not prone to fire. They have water in the canyon. And anyway, so it's a remarkable place. The landowners are very welcoming. It would drive me crazy if I had it and knew that people were coming and going all the time, but they are very, very willing to share their property with the public.
Well, and you shined a light on it, on the value of it. And you told me the homeowners won't allow any oil drilling down in there. So that's pretty helpful.
Yes, there is some oil out there in this neck of the woods. So,
and for people who don't know, Bruce every so often coordinates a field day. Boy, those are fun events when we end up out in McCook for Burr Oak Canyon field days. We get all kinds of cool people like Steve Rolfsmeyer here, a botanist from Chadron. And then on the lower right, here's Tim Buchanan from Fort Collins. He has done some of the most extensive leaf study of these trees, figuring out the probably likelihood of species hybridization between post oak, bur oak, and gamble oak. And then Alan Taylor was his cohort from Colorado. He passed away recently, but he loved to go out and explore oaks across the west and southwest. There's a group picture for, was that 2008?
It was eight or nine. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I think, yeah, it might have been 8, but
I see Galen Whitrock in there and quite a few other people we know.
we had about 7 states represented there that day. It was it was quite a ride down for some of those people in those big tall buses from the college, the
Right.
Greyhound type buses, and the road's real. I imagine they were getting thrown from side to side practically in there. And I know a couple ladies didn't even get off the bus.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I had a good time and we're thinking about doing it again, right? Maybe
yes.
year or who knows when.
Boy, that's like look at all the faces in there. So anyway.
Yeah, that's an awesome group of people. Let's do it again, Bruce. You do all the work, so it's easy for me to say. Yeah.
Consider it done.
And then as we wrap up here, we can learn more about evergreens. Bruce and I just touched on them a little bit today. We tried to focus in mostly on pines and things for southern and southwest Nebraska, but we've got Todd Fowler on today, and he's going to be presenting a deeper dive on evergreens and Christmas trees October 10th, Todd. So I'm glad you got that on the calendar. And then we mentioned Greg Morganson a time or two. He's our cohort from Nebraska, but he's done his professional work in North Dakota. He goes all over the country exploring trees, and he's going to do a treatment on limber pines at our February 7th tree care webinar, Limber Pines and Tree Diversity for the Great Plains. You'll want to tune into that. And then Bruce enlightened me yesterday about a YouTube video for evergreens that Greg put together for North Dakota, but it has a lot of applicability for Nebraska. So I encourage anybody to look for conifers for North Dakota on YouTube, and you'll love what Greg Morganson put together there. Just mentioned to you that there's upcoming tree planting and care 101 webinar series. So next February, a week or a month out from now, we're going to have Graham Herbst back here talking about young tree pruning and establishment. On the 14th, we're going to get a whole panel of people to talk about favorite trees. Some of you on today might be asked to be a part of that. April 11th, right tree, right place, properly planted. May 9th, diseases, insects, and other stresses. And then let's mention also the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum Plant Talks start up this month. January 16th, Bob Hendrickson will go over the great plants of the 2025 program. Perennial of the year, tree of the year, shrub of the year, and grass of the year. And then native trees, invasive species, and controlled burns is the topic for a couple people from the Lewis and Clark Visitor Center near Nebraska City. That will be January 23rd. You're going to love that presentation for sure. So we're trying to cook up a lot of good opportunities for everybody in these colder months and throughout the year. Bruce, thank you so much today for helping us out with this. I'm going to stop my screen share.
Yeah, I'm
You're
gonna
a
take
real
that
keeper,
over.
Bruce.
So in the chat, as I mentioned earlier, anyone that needs CEUs, other than Bruce and Justin, who were the speakers,
Yeah.
get CEUs for your own talks, gentlemen. There's a link in the chat that you can go to get those CEUs. You can, even if you don't need CEUs, you can also use that form to just tell us a little bit about your thoughts about the session today, maybe topics that you'd like to see us cover, or any other feedback that you think would be useful. As I mentioned, whether you need CEUs or you just want to give us a little bit of feedback, you can click that link in the chat, or you can use this QR code that I'm sharing right now. And yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up generally we'll wrap it up now, but if anybody wants to stay on and ask Bruce some questions, he's a wealth of information for Nebraska and trees and all the cool stuff he does. He's a friend to a lot of people. He's a friend to trees, and we're real lucky to have him on today. So Bruce, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Justin.
Oh man, thank you so much for doing this. That was especially on short notice. Maybe before we let you go, Bruce, what are just maybe 5 trees that you'd call some of your favorites for southern and southwest Nebraska?
Concolor, fir, blue spruce. I still like blue spruce. Kentucky coffee tree, Burr Oak. And I feel like shame when I say this. I love crabs, and there are some cultivars now that are absolutely gorgeous. So
Right.
beat me up.
No, I love it. Crab apples. Do you have any? Okay, mention a couple crabapple cultivars you like.
Royalty red, perfect purple. Perfect purple but royalty red is outstanding color. 4 seasons of interest, and that's what's nice about those new cultivars. Red bark in the winter, like a viburnum. I mean, dogwood. Excuse me. The deep pink blossoms, and then the foliage in the summer that looks like it's silk practically. It's so
Oh,
cool.
wow. And that's perfect purple.
Yeah, and beautiful fall color that doesn't last long, but occasionally this year was perfect for color. Good Lord, it lasted forever. So
Wow.
Yeah, and the way they breed those for persistent fruit, then the fruit kind of
Yeah.
holds on for a long time. I'm a fan of golden raindrops. The fruit on that is more of a chartreuse, kind of yellowish green, kind of switches up on the color of the fruit as well. We did have a question in the chat, Justin, about winter tree ID.
Oh, yes.
Is that going down?
Yep, we're doing winter tree ID for the Nebraska Arborists Association again, and that will be February. Wait, March 27th, March 27th.
March.
UNL East Campus this year.
Okay.
No,
Awesome.
excuse me, I'm wrong. February 27th. That's a Thursday.
Okay.
UNL East Campus, but we are organizing a winter tree ID activity on campus here outside of the state, the Arborists Association too, so for the general public, and I'll let people know about that.
Definitely.
Anybody have any comments or questions for Bruce?
Yeah, if anyone wants to unmute yourself, you're welcome to, and say hi or say goodbye or share a comment or question.
I don't know how to do it.
Or
I
just
hear
share your
somebody.
background noise with
I
us.
didn't hear the question. Well, thanks again, Bruce. You're awesome to be able to do this for us. You're a great resource for Southwest Nebraska, for the state in general. So can people come to Common Sense Nursery and buy trees or plants, or would you rather
yes,
not?
yes, by the busload. No,
Yeah.
no, thank you. You're very kind, Justin. So I was happy to be a part of it. I'm passionate about trees. I like trees.
You are, brother.
I forgot to mention one interesting fact. The NRDs in Nebraska, I went to their website. I couldn't get specifically down to trees. It wouldn't be all conifers, but they plant over 1 million trees a year in Nebraska.
Oh my gosh, the NRDs do.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe part of it.
they're a major player.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, okay. Thank you, Justin. Graham.
Yeah, Ben answered this question for Jennifer in the chat, but the webinar will be posted to the YouTube channel. Ben will send out a link to that once it's posted online for anybody that came in late or wants to share it with others.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody come back February 14th. We'll have Graham on here. Valentine's Day, so it'll be spectacular, won't it, Graham?
You betcha.
You'll be sharing the
all
love
are.
of trees. Yeah. We're going to talk primarily about young tree pruning and care, right? But I assume you'll
Yeah. My typical pruning presentation's a full hour, but I'll try to pare it down a bit, and we'll get into some stuff on establishment as well, because that's such a key component of getting trees off to a good start. And I think kind of gets it falls by the wayside sometimes when people are wanting to plant a tree. They have more of a set it and forget it mentality.
Right,
There's a little bit more to be done yet after it's in the ground.
exactly. Get them off to a long, healthy life.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Do people need to stay on a while for that QR code, or are we set for?
Yeah, we can leave the feed open for anyone that needs that link. I will, why don't I just post it again in case it's been kind of buried in comments. But if anybody's having trouble with getting that going, please let me know. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Ben. So there's the link again that you can use to fill out that form for CEUs, or give us some feedback.
Yeah,
Or both.
appreciate the feedback. All complaints go to Ben or Graham.
All praise goes to Justin.
That's right.
I'm gonna go get my ears lowered. But yeah, give us a holler if you have any issues with the CEU stuff. We've got a list of who was on here, so we know if you attended. So just follow up if you have any problems.
Thank you, Graham.
You bet. See y'all next month.
Yep, see you next month, February. All right, people, we're gonna shut her down now unless somebody thinks they need to stay online. Really appreciate you coming today. That was a great turnout. And as Graham said, let us know if there's any topics you'd like we can weave in all kinds of things going forward. Everybody have a good January, a good winter. We'll see you at the next program.